Manchester United have informed Napoli that they will trigger Victor Osimhen's release clause as we're linked with two strikers this summer. Amorim is increasingly frustrated with Andre Onana as we get linked with a move for Diogo Costa. United are preparing to fight Spurs for Angel Gomes. Peter Kenyon shares what he thinks the Glazers' biggest mistake was. Maguire says the players believe in Amorim and Garnacho to Barcelona. All this plus more in today's video as we run through all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news that will keep you right up to date with everything. Welcome to Man United Review. My name's Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video. Let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with the Osimhen stuff. So Arsenal have officially entered the race to sign Victor Osimhen this summer. They are a small step ahead of Manchester United in the race. Now that came from Turkish journalists with a very large following, like 1.7 million at the time of recording this video. Apparently a tier 1 source, where specifically when it comes to like Turkish football and stuff, suggesting that Arsenal have entered the race and they're a small step ahead of Manchester United. But then he also said that Manchester United have informed Napoli that they will trigger Victor Osimhen's release clause in the summer. It goes back to the old kind of thing with Osimhen, doesn't it? The wage will be the biggest issue. He wants, according to Romano, he wants quite a high salary. I don't know if United are going to have the budget available to do that. Depends on our league position, European football, Champions League. It's still all up to play for as well. But you know, realistically, I think Liam Delap's I would say Liam Delap's more realistic than Osimhen, but there are still loads of reports linking us with Osimhen at the moment as well. So who knows how it's going to kind of develop. It all depends on the financial situation and the salary and all of this kind of jazz as well. Now, Manchester United have refused to rule out the possibility of attempting to complete the summer signings of Matheus Cunha and Victor Osimhen, as there is a confidence they could form a formidable partnership at Old Trafford that came via Gimme Sport. Now, that would be, a bit of a wet dream to have Osimhen and Matheus Cunha up front. Although, did you see what Cunha did yesterday? That's a little bit concerning because that's the second time he's lost his temper and started throwing fists and stuff at players as well. Is that the sort of mentality that you want to be paying 60-odd million pounds for when he's got that sort of temperament that could see him facing long, lengthy bans? The pressure at United is obviously greater, I think, than at Wolves, although, so that's a bit of a question mark regarding Matheus Cunha. And then obviously the price of those two, you're looking at 120-odd million pounds for Osimhen and Cunha. I mean, it would be great, don't get me wrong. I just don't know if we've quite got the budget available to do that, to do both. It might be that maybe Cunha and Delap could be possible, but again, even that's going to be a big outlay, and I don't know if we've got the funds available to do that this summer. The reports are, we're sacking people left, right, and centre, cutting money to charities and stuff. So the optics on United at the moment is that they're strapped for cash, but whether they're doing that so that they can have more investment in the first team, we'll have to wait and see. But let me know what you think in the comments. Now, obviously getting a new forward or a new striker has an impact on our current strikers. So Hojlund is taking criticism from all angles right now, and that is partly why the feeling among some internally at United is one of sympathy for the 22-year-old that should not be shouldering the entire goal-scoring burden in the strikers' room at a club the size of United. Now, that came from Nave Salt from the Daily Mail, who's a decent source when it comes to United news. And there is that kind of argument with Hojlund. He is a very young striker, wasn't that experienced when we signed him as well, and effectively has had to come to United to be our number one striker in a team that's struggling to score goals and create chances. That's been a legacy issue. That's not just since we signed Hojlund. We've been like that way for many, many years beforehand. And I always think it goes back to the Varane comments that I brought you, was it a couple of weeks ago, where he was saying a similar thing, where he was saying that Real Madrid, young players don't come into the team and are expected to, become leaders and thrown straight into the first team. There's a development there because they've already got the squad and the players in place, so you can kind of relax a little bit more and go in the first team. Whereas United, you're a young player, you're thrown in the first team, you're expected to be kind of performing, all that kind of weight goes on your shoulders. So, I do kind of agree with that report, actually, that Hojlund is massively under pressure and under the microscope which clearly would have an impact on his confidence and his performances. But, you know, I don't criticise Hojlund for his goal scoring. Never have done, never will do, because we just simply don't create enough chances. It's the basic stuff, you know, and he does have a responsibility to be able to hold the ball and pass it 5 yards, or stay on his feet at sometimes, or, you know, do something kind of different with your game. If he keeps doing the same things and getting the same outcomes, you know, so I don't think he's helping himself either. But there is an argument to say that actually, yes, because he's been thrown into the deep end, you know, and we're expecting a 22-year-old that's only his second full season really in professional football, because he wasn't a first teamer at Atalanta when we signed him. Neither, he was like the third choice striker, paid a lot of money for him, and now he's expected to be, you know, United's kind of number one. Is massively unfair on him. But I do think that we need an upgrade in the striker position, I think, and we need some help or some support, maybe a loan for Hojlund. There's some news on that in a second. But let me know what you think about the Hojlund situation. Be interesting to hear your thoughts actually down below, so get involved. Let me know what you think. So the Muppeteers have said the following regarding the striker situation. There's a strong potential they go for 2 strikers this summer. So what he was effectively saying is that he might be looking at someone like Delap, maybe Osimhen if the funds are available, and it's an opportunity that we can kind of go for. But then also bringing in somebody kind of young, like a prospect signing, I think were the words that he was using regarding the striker situation, and then potentially using Joshua Zirkzee as a number 10, because I think he's actually performing quite well there in recent games and can develop into that kind of role. Still think we'd need, you know, a couple of other options, because we need rotation in that inside kind of 10 position. But interesting that we could be going for, and that was the plan years ago, though, wasn't it? Because the idea was to get Harry Kane and Rasmus Hojlund, so to have a top quality striker and then a developmental striker to kind of come in and play behind him. So so it sounds like from what the Muppeteers were saying, they might be going back to something like that, where we go for like a number 1 striker, but then also a prospect striker as well, and then you add Obi into that mix as well. Actually, that's not a bad shout. Then potentially you've got, you know, a number 1 striker, Obi, and another developmental striker to come in as well. I like the idea of that. And there's a good potential that Hojlund will go on loan this summer. So, you know, we'll keep an eye on how that kind of develops. But I think that would be actually, you know, pretty decent. Let Hojlund go out on loan, learn, develop, take the pressure away from him, let him regain that confidence, because I do think there is a player in Hojlund. It just needs to kind of develop, and he needs to get out of the spotlight and maybe not be the number 1 or go to like a lesser league or a lesser team. Do you know what I mean? Where he's not expected to score every single game. You know, to regain his confidence, and then bring in obviously another striker, and then maybe somebody else to develop and rotate as well. I don't think that's a bad shout. Now, obviously, in the summer, a lot of it's going to depend on player sales, because we are in a position when we need to sell to buy. We are always in a position when we need to sell to buy. That's PSR rules. That's FFP rules. Every club has to sell players to buy players. That's the way the rules are kind of written. One player that could still be or is linked to an exit was in January, but also in the summer's Garnacho. So Barcelona are plotting a summer move for Manchester United striker Alejandro Garnacho, who is expected to be again available this summer. The report adds that Garnacho's future at Old Trafford has been put in doubt due to certain episodes that have not completely convinced the technical management. Now, that came from Fichas, who are not the most credible. So I would say take this story with a pinch of salt. But we know that there's, you know, Garnacho's the one where, you know, I think the kind of biggest, not necessarily the biggest transfer, but the kind of in the transfer window, he would represent a lot of money for United for the PSR rules and stuff, and could help us kind of go a little bit further in terms of bringing players in. But obviously he's young, developmental potential, so it's a massive kind of talking point, the Garnacho situation. But there's no smoke without fire. Obviously we were potentially going to let him go in January, so maybe he is a player that we need to move on in the summer in order to obviously get the funds in, maybe for himself as well. Does he quite fit the system? You know, I do kind of question his discipline record at United as well for someone so young. So it's one of these. Keep an eye on it for you. Let me know what you think down below. Now, and we've been linked to this, came out a couple of days ago, but from another Italian outlet saying that Lookman is high on the list of forwards that Manchester United will look to sign this summer. So that's the second kind of Italian outlet that's linked us potentially with Lookman. Not the most credible though, so I would say take that with a pinch of salt. But he would be an interesting kind of player to bring in. Physical, fits a lot of the kind of. He's got a lot of the attributes that we would maybe be looking for, apart from his age. He's 27, I think, now. But there is an argument for that too. We can't just keep signing loads of young players. You do maybe need a bit of experience and a bit of, seniority in the team and the squad, but not come from the most credible places. So we'll take it with a pinch of salt for now, but I'll keep an eye on it for you. Now, the other area we're looking or heavily linked with at the moment is the goalkeeper situation. So Manchester United could attempt to sign long-standing target Costa when the transfer window reopens for business in the summer, according to Gimme Sport sources, and his arrival would result in Onana being a serious danger of falling down the pecking order if he does not embark on a fresh challenge. Manchester United are contemplating whether to formalise their interest in Costa by entering discussions after deciding to scout a number of goalkeepers outside the Premier League. That's interesting, as they go in search of potential upgrade on current first choice custodian Onana. Rúben Amorim is becoming increasingly frustrated with Andre Onana's performances and could encourage Manchester United to pursue a deal for Diogo Costa. Now that came from Gimme Sport, who, they've got decent journalists, not decent journalists. That was from one of their more decent ones, to be fair. But I heard that City might be looking at Costa. That's going to be an expensive outlay for a goalkeeper. I do think there's a conversation, and definitely I think a need to bring in a goalkeeper. It's just how much of the budget are we going to invest in that area? Potentially would depend on sales though as well, because if you sold Onana, then you might be able to get some money in, which might be that you can then spend a little bit more cash on a goalkeeper. But we've got so many other areas of the pitch that we need to strengthen. Strikers, we've just mentioned. Forwards, I think we need a midfielder. Obviously, Kenda may potentially coming in at right wing back as well. Argument for another centre half with Lindelof, Evans going. Obviously, Martinez injured now as well. So there are a lot of problems to fix at United. Whether we're going to have the budget and the funds to go out and get everything done in one transfer window, I highly doubt. And someone like Costa, for example, is going to cost you a lot of money as well, because he's a top quality goalkeeper. He definitely would be one that I would kind of be looking at. I actually wanted Costa before we signed Onana. He would have been my kind of preference at that particular point in time as well. But again, it goes down to funds. Are we going to have that sort of money available? I very much doubt. But again, it depends on what the priority of Amorim is. Amorim might say, okay, well, I've got young players that I can play in the 10 positions or in the midfield. The under-18s did an unbelievable job the other day against Arsenal. There's some really, really talented players in that under-18 squad. So maybe there's a argument to say, okay, well, can we not just use some of those as your rotation options or as your kind of your squad filling and spend a little bit of extra cash on a goalkeeper? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see what happens. But yeah, would definitely be a very good goalkeeper to bring in to replace Onana, in my opinion, Costa. But let me know what you think down below. Now, someone who's probably more realistic for our budget is Angel Gomes, because he is a freebie. Manchester United plan to fight for the signing of Angel Gomes with Tottenham Hotspurs, who is a free agent at the end of the season, has already made a decision to get back in the Premier League. Now, that came from Ekram Connor, who's linked us with a lot of players, but he's got a very large following as well. So I'm not 100% sure on the credibility. But yeah, it's got a very large following, a football journalist as well, so we'll kind of keep an eye on it for you. Not the first time. I doubt it'll be the last time we've been linked with Angel Gomes, and for a free transfer, I think he would be a good addition to bring into the squad. Can play in a couple of different positions as well, so could give you a little bit of flexibility in the team and in the squad. Obviously homegrown, gone away, done really well in France, and kind of developed. So I do think that would be a good shout. And someone keeps mentioning in the comments, or a few of you actually been mentioning in the comments recently, around Jonathan David. We're looking for 2 strikers. Jonathan David's available on a free. I like Jonathan David as well. I think he could do a good job at United, even if it's a second kind of striker or rotation option as well. I like the idea of that, but no kind of heavy links with Jonathan David at the moment. He's been a player we've been linked with massively though in the past, so I am keeping an eye on it for you. It's just, I think you've done an interview the other day saying that now's the time to leave. He's looking for a new challenge and stuff. So he's definitely leaving in the summer. It's just whether he's the profile of striker that we want to kind of go for. I personally would be doing that as well as a free transfer. I think he's a good player, but let me know what you think in the comments. And they're just on the whole kind of transfer situation. Rúben Amorim had the following to say, which I felt was interesting. It was he said the physical aspect is there in the Premier League, no matter who the opponent is. Sometimes you don't need to build, just a long ball, a second ball, and that's it. And you don't have that. So if you don't have that, you have difficulties. We talk about some players like Antony, who is much better in Spain. There are many factors, but I guarantee you it's linked to the physical aspect. So I thought that was a good quote from Rúben Amorim, because we've heard before that physicality, intensity from Romana is the kind of the profile of players that they're kind of looking for. And then he also saying that obviously Antony's doing really well in Spain on his loan. Long may that continue as well. He's obviously found a league and a place where he's a little bit kind of less demanding, less physical, so he can kind of showcase his skills and his talents, because there's a reason. There's a reason he was playing for Brazil in the past, and but he was saying, I guarantee it's because of the physical aspect. So effectively, Amorim said, because it's a less physical league, some players will just suit that. But obviously, in the Premier League, you need that physicality, you need that intensity. So again, that's going to be the profile I think a player that we're going for. Look at Patrick Dorgu. Patrick Dorgu looks like an absolute beast when it comes to physicality, and he's banned now for the next 3 games, which is unlucky with that red card. But that's the sort of profile of signings they're going to be looking for, and that's long overdue. We do need to increase our physicality and our in the team. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now, let's go through some quotes. So Rúben Amorim in his embargoed press conference also had the following to say around transfers and having to say goodbye to players at the end of the season. He said, we can talk about it at the end of the season because it's difficult. We still have a lot of games to play. It's not a difficult situation because everybody understands that in football, sometimes you stay, sometimes you have to move on. If you know how to explain it, it's easy. And then he said, I like to do it because I want to be clear. When you're honest with someone, it's difficult at first, but the person will understand. So I'm very honest with my players, and they already know that sometimes you have to move on at the end of the season. So I wonder if Amorim's kind of already had that conversation with certain players to you need to find a new club or you're not part of the plans. Obviously, we know we've got players leaving for free anyway, so they're obviously not going to be getting new contracts and stuff. But by the sounds of things on there, he said, I'm very honest with my players. They already know that sometimes you have to move on at the end of the season. So I wonder if he's already had that conversation with certain players. And maybe that's something to do with the performances and stuff as well. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe I'm reading a bit too much in that, but let me know what you think in the comments. Now, on Maguire, specifically on Amorim, said that this group of players believes in Rúben Amorim's tactics. We probably need signings, and I'm sure there will be some. We believe in Rúben, his tactics, and his coaches. So Maguire kind of saying that the players are kind of do believe in the tactics and the approach. It's just admitting himself that maybe we need signings for that kind of situation in the system as well. But they're behind him in this coach. And, that I like that from Harry Maguire coming out in support of the manager. But the only kind of the kind of skeptic in me said that they've said the same about every single manager, that eventually the players are thrown under the bus and ended up getting sacked. So, but it's nice to know that they kind of are behind the manager and the tactics. Now, this was really interesting from Peter Kenyon when he was done a bit of speaking on a business podcast. Had the following to say regarding the Glazers. Said the downfall of United was the success of United, and in that they didn't have a succession plan. You don't let 2 people who have influenced the club for many years, the manager and the CEO, to leave at the same time. It's a joke. You should be shot for that. What business would let their 2 key employees walk out the door on the same day? You don't even know where the plug sockets are to plug stuff in. Don't get me on that. It really annoys me. Now, that was in an interview. I read it in the Mirror, but on a podcast, effectively saying that one of the biggest criticisms he had around the Glazers was the fact that we let obviously Sir Alex and David Gill go at the same time. And then obviously not having a succession plan for it as well. I mean, I think there's plenty of things the Glazers have done other than that. But interesting to hear it from Peter Kenyon, who was our former CEO as well before. I'm sure he was the CEO before David Gill, but David Gill was very highly regarded. And then he obviously left. Sir Alex left. And then they got their friends and bankers in. And the rest is kind of history. But let me know what you think about Peter Kenyon's comments in the comments below. Let me know what you think about all the other topics discussed in today's video, because that's you all up to date with the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Don't forget to smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. See you in the next one.